You know, some stories are so powerful they almost feel like myths, but every now and then they're completely real. Today, we're digging up the nearly forgotten story of a man who rose from the docks of Singapore to become an absolute legend. So take a look at this picture. This is Vata Kudi Iranian. Back in the 1940s, his name was spoken with a mix of awe and respect all across Singapore's port. This was a man who commanded the total, unwavering loyalty of thousands. But how does that even happen? Who was this guy, so young that he could make hardened gangsters back down, and at the same time give hope to thousands of downtrodden workers? Well, his story doesn't start in Singapore. It starts thousands of miles away. To really get who the revolutionary was, we have to understand the world that made him. And it was a world of pure desperation. One that pushed so many people toward a future they couldn't even imagine. Okay, so picture this, colonial India in the early 20th century. For millions, life was just a brutal daily grind against unbelievable odds. We're talking widespread hunger, disease everywhere, and just no opportunities. It was an environment of deep, profound suffering. And that kind of desperation, well, it sparked a huge wave of migration. For literally hundreds of thousands of young people, the rumor of work in places like Malaya and Singapore was the only light they could see. So they got on ships, left everything and everyone they knew behind, all for the slim chance of just surviving. But the dream of a new life, yeah, it slammed right into a very harsh reality. The work was absolutely backbreaking. Clearing dense jungle, smashing rocks for buildings under a blazing sun. It was basically a life of slavery, with the constant threat of deadly malaria or a bite from a venomous snake. And it's right into this brutal world that a young boy arrives. A boy who wouldn't just survive these conditions, but would actually rise up and challenge the whole system that created them. His name originally was Vengadhasalam. He was born in 1920 in a tiny village in India. And just like so many others, he showed up in Singapore as a teenager around 1934. He was only 16 years old, and he went straight to work as a laborer at the port. Now here's what's amazing. Vengadhasalam didn't have much formal education, but he had this hunger to learn. He found mentors who taught him, and he just soaked up all the powerful ideas that were swirling around at the time. The fight for equality in Karl Marx's communism, the ideas of social justice from Periyar's rationalism, and of course that intense desire for freedom coming from the Indian independence movement. And all of these powerful ideas, they just lit a fire in him. He wasn't just Vengadhasalam, the laborer, anymore. He took on a new name, a powerful name that marked his transformation, Iranian, the revolutionary. And as Iranian, man, he was about to become one of the most powerful people in all of Singapore. The unquestioned leader of the very same docks where he'd once been just another anonymous worker. Okay, let's talk numbers. 12,000. That's how many members the Singapore Port Workers Union had at its peak. This was a huge, incredibly powerful organization, and it represented the very men who were the lifeblood of the city. And who was at the top? Iranian. Just let that sink in. In 1946, he becomes the president of the largest and most powerful union in the entire region. And how old was he? Just 26. His charisma, his passion, his fierce dedication, it had made him a true leader of men. But here's the thing, he wasn't just some union boss flexing his muscle. No, he was a genuine social reformer. He went head-to-head with the gangs that were extorting the workers and completely kicked them out. He banned alcohol, which he saw as a poison holding his community back, and he always had an eye on the future, making it a rule that every single worker's kid had to go to school. And his personal integrity? It was legendary. I mean, the union was handling huge amounts of money, and not a single penny ever went missing. His people trusted him so much, there was a saying that not even an ant would dare to betray him. So, picture this. He's at the absolute peak of his power. Thousands of men look to him as their leader, and then he does something nobody saw coming. He decides to walk away from it all. See, the whole political landscape was shifting under his feet. In June of 1948, the British colonial government declared a state of emergency. They started a vicious crackdown on union leaders and activists, anyone they thought was a threat. A lot of people were jailed, or worse. Now, he could have stayed in Singapore, right? Kept his head down, stayed safe, but that wasn't Iranian. He saw the real root of the struggle, and it was back in his homeland. So he made this unbelievable choice. He gave up his powerful, secure job as union president. And in 1948, he went back to Tamil Nadu to join the fight for the most oppressed people there. But going home meant he was walking right into the fire. For the next 2 years, he was a wanted man, constantly on the run from the police because of his activism. The fight that started on the docks in Singapore had followed him home, and it was building to a tragic end. Then, on May 5, 1950, someone informed on him. The police surrounded him, and he was killed. He was only 30 years old, but his death, well, that wasn't the end of his story, not by a long shot. In a way, it was just the beginning of the legend. And here's a detail that's just wild, almost poetic, really. Iranian was killed on May 5th, the very same day that one of his biggest inspirations, Karl Marx, was born. The life of one revolutionary ends on the birthday of another. I mean, just think about that journey for a second. From a poor teenage kid working on the docks to the most powerful union leader in East Asia. He chose his principles over power. He chose sacrifice over his own safety. And that incredible conviction in the fight for justice, that's what made him a martyr and a legend. And that's what's so powerful about his story, right? It makes you ask a question that never gets old. He was a man from a certain time and a certain place, but his fight for simple human dignity feels completely universal. It just makes you wonder, in our world today, how are the echoes of one person's fight for justice still being heard?